Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Hello, everybody. Maybe. I don't know if you can hear me or if you're even there. We are coming to you live only from YouTube tonight. I was hacked yesterday on Facebook, and then again I got that sorted, and then a few hours later, I was hacked again by someone else, someone in Vietnam, and then someone in Japan, or maybe they have one of those things where you can hack from different spots. It's been a mess, but right now I am blocked from you, or not from YouTube, from from Facebook for the time being, and then I will eventually be going through and hopefully getting Facebook up later on tonight, this evening. Good evening. No one's on yet. What? This is the longest we've ever gone without anyone popping on. Maybe there's a lot of people who usually pop on Facebook first. I don't know. Hello. So maybe not. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Maybe everyone's having issues. Let's look on Facebook here. We'll see. I'm gonna refresh this bad boy. Are we live? Oh, maybe we're not. Wait, are we not live? Uh-oh. Okay, let's try something else here. Live. Yeah, it says we're live. We're live right now. Live from New York. It's Saturday night. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's not working. Oh, that's just the way it's been the last 2 days. Oh, there we go. Thanks for the Florida weather now in Wisconsin, 100 today. Yeah, my parents were telling me, they were like, it's 99 degrees out right now. I was like, haha. And it's actually cooler down here right now. We got someone in the chat room. Joanne, how you doing? I know it's very hot up there. I talked to a few different people from Wisconsin today. Some of them were doing swimming. They got swimming pools, and they said this is going to be the best option we have for the day. Other people are just staying inside with the AC and hoping for the best. So, but way too hot up there. All right, so yeah. So, anyways, I got hacked on Facebook. So right now we are not going live from the From Screen to Theme Facebook page. I think I still have access to the From Screen to Theme Facebook page. Well, my big fear in the world is that if I log on there while being locked out, whoever hacked me will then have access to the From Screen to Theme Facebook page still. So that's my big fear. So tonight we're just going to be coming to you live from YouTube and YouTube only for those specific reasons. Just for everyone's safety. I don't want to have so anyone else gets hacked. Oh, I don't even know how I got hacked. My friend who is in IT believes that maybe it was through my email. He thinks that maybe somehow got into my email. So we've done a lot of work today of getting things in the Authenticator app, and hopefully that will work and get things right on path. But unfortunately, because of all that, I have not had enough time at the parks. Like I did not get much time at the park yesterday. I didn't get much time at the park today. Oh, it's my my 2 days off. Well, I have 3 days off in the week, but it's 2 of my 3 days off, and it's been spent stressing out about this. And I don't stress about things, but this has been just so chaotic. And I was so worried that I was going to get hacked on Facebook or on YouTube and Instagram as well. Facebook, I'm fine not having it for the time being, but if I lost Instagram and YouTube, those are my sources of income, like legit. The hacker thought they could bring down your challenge by keeping you by the computer instead of a park. I would not be surprised if one of you guys has hired a hacker to do that. If that's if that was the game plan, where people are like, you know what, he's getting a lot of attractions in this week. Someone to hack his Facebook, keep him by his computer, and it worked because yesterday I was by my computer for like 5 hours in the middle of the day, and that is a very rare thing for me to do. And then today it was like another 2, 3, maybe 4 hours by the computer in the middle of the day when I could have been riding the people mover By the way, so I rode People Mover 3 times today, all in a row, 1, 2, 3, without getting off. And the cast member finally, for the first time during this whole year-long crazy challenge, she was like, "Are you trying to like figure out how many rides you do in a year?" I'm like, "Thank you. Yes, I am." Okay, so let's get this party started. We are going to start the 731st episode of the Wednesday Show in 5, 4, 3, 2. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 731st episode of the Wednesday Show. Today is August 23rd, 2023, and I'm your host, as always, Brent Dodge. Hello. Today, we're going to be going to you guys to figure out the Disney topic that you want to have us so we talk about. So start thinking about some ideas in the chat room and start throwing your ideas in the chat room, and maybe we will choose your idea for tonight's topic. But of course, before we get to that, let's talk about our news for the week. First off, thank you everyone who's been joining us for our Saturday in the Park. If you didn't already know, every single Saturday right here on my YouTube channel, we do a live broadcast from someplace found throughout the Walt Disney World Resort. You never know where we're going to be, but I promise you we are always going to be at Disney. So make sure you join us every single Saturday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time to join us in some Disney fun. Also, if you have not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, I highly suggest that you subscribe right now. Where's it at? There we go. Don't forget to like this video that you're watching right now and also subscribe as well. As always, let's take a look at our subscriber count. If we get more subscribers as the night goes on here, we will go up into extra innings as the night goes through. By the way, again, I had a video that was going kind of crazy earlier today. So when it goes kind of crazy, sometimes they give you a few extra subscribers and those might drop down. So right now we are sitting at a 3,099 total subscribers. It would be awesome if we got up to 3,100 before the show was up. So invite your friends. If you're not already subscribed, maybe you can be number 3,100. So send those people out there. And yeah. Also, tonight's episode, as always, is sponsored by It's All About the Mouse Travel Jazz Hands. Make sure you stop by. It's allaboutthemousetravel.com for all of your Disney travel needs. All their services are absolutely, positively, 100%ly free. So make sure you book with them for your next Disney vacation. Okay. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through and going to... What's going on here? Wait a minute. Now I'm on such high alert with this thing. Oh, that's pretty cool. That's really cool. Over at San Francisco in California Adventure, a Baymax bread. Hey, Matt, how you doing? My friend just sent me that. Saying, OMG, that's amazing. So my friend sent me that. I thought it was something like, oh my God, you won't believe what the hacker's posting on your Facebook right now. And it'd be like, a picture of a guy like. So yes. So okay, let's start going through. Throw some topics down in the comments below. How about we'll give you 3 options tonight. We can either do a history episode where we'll go back and talk about an attraction that's no longer with us. We can do another history episode about a park opening, let's say Animal Kingdom. And third could be a continuation of our Disney 100 series. So start throwing your ideas into the comments below. Which one would you like? Would you like to have it so we do a Disney history about a fallen attraction? Let's say Studio Backlot Tour. Studio Backlot Tour, opening of Animal Kingdom, or what was the third one I said? Oh, Disney 100 series. So throw your things into the chat room. One with the most views or most votes will be our thing. We have 1 vote for park opening. We got another vote for Disney 100. We got the park history. I'm assuming that's the park opening one, right? Park opening. Hello, people are slowly coming to the chat room tonight. So we got 1 or 2 votes for park opening, 1 vote for Disney 100. We'll give you guys about 30 more seconds to throw your votes in there. Like I said, people are slowly coming in right now. Also, for those guys who are just joining us and wondering why we're not on Facebook, it's because I can't get on Facebook. Okay. We got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's talk about the opening of Disney's Animal Kingdom. Because it did celebrate its 25th anniversary this year. So I think we kind of have to go through and talk a little bit about the history of Disney's Animal Kingdom. This is perfect because we got the map next to us here. So we got some visual references and all that other fun stuff. So before we start getting there, you know what? Here, hold on for 1 second because I'm going to show you the coolest thing ever. I sent you this over here. Okay, this is one of my prized possessions right here. It's called The Making of Disney's Animal Kingdom Theme Park. It was created, or it was released back in, I want to say it was 1997. Was it 97? It was 98. It did come out the year the park opened up. I was thinking it came out just slightly before the park opened up, but it was 1998. I've read this book like 17 times. No joke. Actually, one of you lovely people out there, Robert, I don't know if you're watching this now or later, but Robert, our good friend, was the one who actually purchased this for me one time. He wrote to me and said, "What's your address? I just bought you a book on Amazon, and I need to send it to you because it's the coolest book ever." And it's literally from 1998. It's from the Imagineer's perspective of everything. Actually, there's fun facts from here that I've shared before on my videos, and I've had people who've gone through and said, "That's a lie. That Disney didn't do that. They didn't do that on purpose." And I'm like, it's in the book that came out when the park opened up. What are you talking about, people? So anyways, so what we'll do is we'll talk about Disney's Animal Kingdom, or as it was also known before the park opened up. Let's get to the history because, okay, while we go through here, I'm going to throw a trivia question at you, and then we'll figure it out from there. Do you like my picture? Yes, I did. Okay, so let's start off with the trivia question, and we'll get to the trivia question, and then we'll start going through the history. And while we go through the history, we will answer your trivia question. Actually, we can kind of do this throughout the whole night. We'll ask a few trivia questions as we go through there. You guys answer the questions, and if you're right, you'll find out. If you're not wrong, you'll find out too. So, our first question is going to be, what was the original name for Disney's Animal Kingdom? It was not originally going to be Disney's Animal Kingdom. What was the original name for Disney's Animal Kingdom? While you think about that, let's go into a little bit of history mode about how Disney's Animal Kingdom came to be. So going back to 1989 was a thing that we went through, and okay, we've been getting this question a lot. Hey Jeff, how you doing? I did not deactivate it. I got hacked, so I am blocked out of Facebook right now. I'm going to be trying to get back into it. After this, I got a code from Facebook to reactivate it, but I want to go the right protocol, so I'm waiting until I have a little bit more time. I noticed that I got the code from them at 9:00, so did not have enough time to go through. Yes, there we go. Disney's Wild Animal Kingdom was the original name. So the history of Animal Kingdom, we went into the year 1989 quite a bit a few weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, I think, when we were doing our Disney 100 series. And when we were doing that Disney 100 series, one of the things that we talked about was the year 1989 and how 1989 brought us things like Pleasure Island, Typhoon Lagoon, and of course, Disney MGM Studios. And the following year, a young Joe Rohde was the person who kind of took the reins to start to come up with the idea of a brand new theme park. Now, the brand new theme park would focus on the idea of conservation, but at the start, it was not really focusing on conservation. It was just they had this idea of a theme park, and they had to keep on going to these different meetings and trying to have it so they could have it so this park would eventually come to life, but they were really fighting for it about once a month to see if they could continue getting the funding from corporate to have it so they could actually go forward with this theme park idea. So the entire idea was originally going to be pretty much like a glorified zoo, except for to make it a little bit more exciting and to bring a little bit more of real life into the situation. So when they were coming up with the idea of Disney's Animal Kingdom, they had so many different ideas that were in place, but let's start focusing off on the idea that's the main central theme, which is the main word that's in it, animal. So when they were going through, they wanted to have it so it was going to be like a zoo, but it was not going to be anything like a zoo at all. So they actually took some teams of Imagineers out to Africa to kind of go through and study the animals. While they were going out there and studied the animals and studying what African wildlife is actually like, they realized that some safaris are very, very dull and very, very boring. In fact, one of the stories that they went through and told, I want to say it was a leopard. It might have been a lion, but I'm like 99% positive it was a leopard. They went through, and while they were going through and they saw this leopard in a tree, they realized that all these other safari trucks were there looking at the same leopard because safaris in Africa can be kind of dull. So Joe Rohde, along with his team of Imagineers, said, you know what we're going to do is we're going to try to make things a little bit more exciting while we are there at Disney's Animal Kingdom or Disney's Wild Animal Kingdom, or just the theme park that we're working on, which is what it was kind of known as at that point. So they wanted to come up with an idea of how to pitch this thing to make it a little bit more exciting, to show that you are truly going to be going face to face with actual wildlife that you would only see out in Africa or out in Asia or in, mythical lands as well. So when they would go through and try to create this brand new theme park, again, like I said, they had to go through these different meetings. And when they started to realize that a lot of things were fading, they came up with a genius idea. So the genius idea was they were going to have it so an actual animal expert from the San Diego Zoo would come up with an actual live tiger. Actually, originally they had it so it was going to be a different animal, but the different animal, was that the leopard? No, maybe it might have been a leopard. I can't remember. Just go with me here. But whatever animal they're going to bring in was acting wild that day, and they said it probably is not safe to put this animal into a room with different people. So we have a backup. We have a tiger if you want to bring the tiger in. So they bring this tiger in while Joe Brody's talking. He doesn't even look at the tiger. He just continues to do his presentation. And after that, a few things came out of it. Number one, a lot more funding happened because he proved his point. The point at this point was, would people really want to go to a Disney zoo? Because that's essentially what they were thinking of it as at the start. Not the Imagineers, but more of like corporate people. They were saying, do we really want to go through and we want to have it so we fund a zoo type of atmosphere? Because it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So what they said, instead, what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of let you come up with these ideas. If the ideas work, we'll let you continue to go forward with them. If they don't work, we won't. So when Joe Rohde did that presentation, something happened, and that marvelous thing that happened was 5 different people, executives, who were in that room, and all 5 of those people had a story to share. Now, the stories that they shared were the reactions of the different people that were in the room, because everyone had a different reaction about this tiger that was now in the room and was going to essentially maul him to death. It was on a chain, but still, he was going to kill him. And so all these people became extremely excited. They became scared. They became nervous, but they also noticed the reactions of the people around them. Some people got scared, some people got excited, but everyone all of a sudden left with this feeling of excitement because they came face to face with this actual real life tiger. And when that meeting finished, they said, you know what, we're going to greenlight this project because this project actually will work if you continue to give us really cool experiences like that. Now, obviously, when you go to Disney's Animal Kingdom, like I'm assuming most of you guys have, when you go to Disney's Animal Kingdom, there's nothing quite like going face to face with a tiger. However, at the same time, there kind of is. So let's kind of go into that. Now, before we go into that, let's also answer this question and this question here alone. There started to become many different wildlife experts who would be going through and getting showing support to Disney when it came to creating Disney's Animal Kingdom. Which one was called out by Michael Eisner during the opening ceremony, and they said the wrong type of animal that this person was an expert at? All right, so while you guys try to figure out that question, let's continue going through our history lesson. So while we go through and talk about this, so around 1993, I think the meeting happened in 1993, they started to realize what they needed to do was come up with the complete idea of what this theme park was actually going to be. They wanted to have it so it was going to be a very lively theme park. And one thing that they kind of came up with the idea of was conservation. They needed to have it so there was going to be a theme throughout the entire theme park, whether you're in the Oasis, Africa, Asia, Dinoland, USA, Discovery Island, or Camp Mini Mickey. They needed to have it so no matter where you went in the park, there was going to be this idea of conservation all around you. So in 1995, 3 years before Disney's Animal Kingdom would open up, they actually launched the idea of the Disney Conservation Fund. Now, you guys have probably heard of the Disney Conservation Fund. I would be shocked if you didn't, because if you've ever gone to any gift shop at Disney's Animal Kingdom, I guarantee you that the cashier has asked you, "Would you like to donate up to support the Disney Wildlife Conservation Fund?" And you've probably said, "Sure," or maybe you said no, and then they said, "You'll get a button," and you say, "Oh, give that to me." That's how it usually goes with me, and usually I've got like a cajillion buttons from Disney's Animal Kingdom for the Conservation Fund. So when they started coming up with this idea of the Conservation Fund, it started to bring more interest in from different people. Now, before we get into this, I want to bring up a very important point, because a lot of people think that Disney created the Conservation Fund specifically to try to get support of other people, when in reality, it was the other way around. They wanted to have it so they started to get the support of other people. And when the support of these different people were coming in, they said, what is something that you're going to do that's going to be unique to Disney's Animal Kingdom that other theme parks won't have? What is your overall theme? And the Imagineer said, haha, we have been talking about this, and we're thinking that the overall theme of the entire theme park is going to be conservation. And from start to finish, we want to have it so you go through and you truly celebrate conservation from start to finish. So of course there was more and more people who wanted to become involved in this project. And when all these people started to get involved, they started to get some pretty big names, including the one that I asked you the trivia question for. So during the opening ceremony of Disney's Animal Kingdom, Michael Eisner went up there and he introduced not Kelsey Grammer. I'm sorry, such a good guess though. Not Kelsey Grammer, but instead he introduced the one and only Jane Goodall, who of course has worked with chimpanzees. He said her work with gorillas, and a lot of people were shocked in the entire theater, and they said, I was in a theater. It was actually in the parking lot. We'll get into that in a little bit too. A lot of people were shocked in the parking lot that he would say gorillas when everyone knew that she was a chimpanzees expert. And the story goes that she kind of approached him afterward and said, I work with chimpanzees and not gorillas, right? And he said, I thought I was wrong, but this was the note that I had. And he showed her the note that said gorillas. And then he wrote her a little note on there and gave it to her. And that's how she got Michael Eisner's autograph. So, hey. Okay, so when they started to go through and Jane Goodall got involved, what Disney started to do is they started to have it so they would take those Disney Conservation Fund donations that they were already kind of piling together. So things like different movies that would come out, things like Pocahontas would come out that year. They would have it so different profits from those movies would actually be placed in the Disney Conservation Fund to go out and support other conservation efforts around the world. This also allowed them to start to get more and more exposure for the theme park before the theme park actually was going to open. Also, in addition to that, they realized that there was going to be two different things that had to be put in place for Disney's Animal Kingdom. Because when you go through Disney's Animal Kingdom, the very first thing that you notice is a massive tree. And I know what you're thinking, yes, there's lots of carvings of animals on the tree, but it's still a tree. It is not an animal, it's a tree. Although the tree does bark and so do dogs. So just came up with that myself. So when you go through Disney's Animal Kingdom, you'll notice that there's a tree, but there's also so much plant life everywhere you look. Because the idea that Disney wanted to put in place was, if it was not for the animals, we wouldn't have the land. And if it was not for the land, we would not have the animals. The two of them have to go hand in hand in some way, shape, or form. And so that's going to be the way that we're going to connect these two things together. So they started to go through and hire more and more horticulture experts to create a living landscape for these animals and for the guests, human animals, to go around and actually be able to explore the entire park and be fully immersed in the story. So when they started to do this, Disney came up with an idea that they had never really done for a theme park before. Now, going back way back to 1954, we talked about Bill Rogers before. Not Bill Rogers. Bill Rogers is the voice of Disneyland. What's his name? Now I'm drawing a huge blank. Bill Walsh. Bill Walsh. I can't think of his name right now. The horticulture expert from Disneyland back in 1954. His name will come to me later on, or maybe someone in the chat room will say it, and I'll be like, haha, that's who we're talking about. Bill Evans. Bill Evans. That's it. Bill Evans, right? Bill Evans. I'm almost positive Bill Evans. Bill Evans went through and he wanted to have it so he created a living, breathing environment at Disneyland, hired by Walt Disney himself. Bill Evans, I'm like getting more and more certain as I talk and say his name more and more that is the name that I want to say. I'm 99.999% positive it's Bill Evans right now. And then someone's going to say a different name and be like, it is Kelsey Grammer. So 99.99% positive it's Bill Evans. And Bill Evans actually did, he worked and lived and breathed with the horticulture world, starting with his father and his grandfather, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he knew plants better than anyone else. So Walt Disney hired him to come out to Disneyland, help build these different plants, or not build these plants, but plant these plants and have it so it served a purpose throughout every single area throughout all of Disneyland Park when the park would first open up the following year in 1955. So a lot of the different plants that he had taken around the area were plants that you would pretty much find anywhere around Central and Southern California. So there would have different trees that were very exotic looking, and they were just trees that were planted upside down. So the roots were coming up to kind of give the idea that it was an exotic plant, but in reality, it was just an upside down plant. So Disneyland, Bill Evans had it so he had all that. Disney World, however, wanted to have it so they took it a step further. So 3 years before, along the same time when they're creating the conservation fund, Disney Imagineers, specifically Joe Rohde and team, went through and they said, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to go through and create a living, breathing environment with actual plants everywhere. But in order to pull this off, they would need literally millions of plants scattered throughout the entire area. And it was kind of tough to go through and create millions of plants throughout the entire area that would actually be authentic to the different areas that we were going through. So this brings us to a new horticulture expert whose name I can't even think right now. It's just a very weird long last name. I think it's like Rada Jock or something like that. We'll just say it's not important to the story right now because I can't think of the guy's name. So what they did was they hired this guy and he would go off to actual Africa and find different plants and buy different plants and have them so they're shipped back over to Central Florida. Then he would go off to Asia. Same thing. He would get these different plants, ship them off to Central Florida. And he would start to go through and get different, literally millions and millions of pounds of soil from these different places. They would actually have it so they would be able to support these trees and support this life. And so he brought all this soil, all these plants from different parts around the world. He planted these different things in a brand new concept that Disney had never done before. And that was the idea of actually having a tree farm. So still to this day, if you go behind Disney's Animal Kingdom, you can actually go see this tree farm. If you've ever had a car on Disney property, you can go past the tree farm. You just can't go into the tree farm. So to give you an idea of exactly where it's at, oh, you know what? Haha. My Disney Experience app can show us exactly where it's at. I don't think it'll actually, it's not going to say the tree farm or anything like that. If you've ever done the Walt Disney World full marathon, you've gone past this. If you've done the Wine and Dine half marathon at all, sometimes you've gone past it, but not always. There's been times where you have, sometimes you have not. But if you go down to Western Way, which is the area that's over by Coronado Springs, here we go. Let's see. Can we zoom in here? Oh, we kind of can. Not like extremely well, but we kind of can. Okay, so if you look, wait, come on, focus, dude. All right, this is the Kilimanjaro Safaris. That little blue building on your right-hand side is Rafiki's Planet Watch, and then the yellow road is Western Way, hence why it's labeled Western Way. If you look at the area, that's kind of wait. If you look at the area that's like right where the crack of the screen is, that is actually just a giant, massive tree farm. So if you ever go on Western Way over by Coronado Springs and take that back road there, you have probably driven past this, and maybe you didn't even realize that you were driving past this at all. So when you're going through from Western Way towards the exit of Disney, or at the exit of Walt Disney World, you can see on the left-hand side. If you're coming into Walt Disney World from that massive expressway that's over there. I can't think of what it's called right now off the top of my head. It's not I-4, it's a different one. You go off that exit and you go down. It's on the right hand side. So they decided to create this entire tree farm from scratch. And by the time the park would open up 3 years later, most of the trees would be mature enough to actually have it so they could plant them inside the park. So while they're going through and creating these different trees and different plant life, they also had another thing that was kind of really important, and that was the idea of animals. Because obviously, if you're going to have Disney's Animal Kingdom, you need to have some animals. So they needed to come up with a few different concepts of the animals they're going to have inside the park. So they went across the United States to different zoos to see which zoos were willing to give up different animals. Now, if you ever go to Disney's Animal Kingdom and you find the different animals there, none of the animals there have ever really been in the wild. They are all pretty much, I was going to say pruned, but they weren't pruned. They are all animals that are from different zoos and different things like that. They've pretty much grown up in isolation from the outside world. So this is one of the main things that the Zoo Foundation and all those other foundations out there, what's it called? The AZA. It's the Aquariums and Zoo Association, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it's called. They would go through and they would say, okay, in order for you to actually have these animals here, you have to join our organization. Plus, you're not allowed to actually go to Africa and pick up your own lion. Like, it's just illegal. So what you can do is you can start having it so you can go to different zoos and have it so maybe they can either donate an animal or they can just, you can buy one from a different zoo if that's what it called for. So they would go through these different zoos and they would start to find different animals, trying to figure out exactly what storyline would fit best with the entire theme park. So they started to go through and try to figure out what theme would fit best. And one thing they wanted was to have an African safari. And they wanted to have it so that African safari would be more exciting than the African safari that they took while doing research in actual Africa. So they wanted to have it so there was going to be a wide variety of different animals found along the trail. But in order to do this, they would have to go through and actually have it so there was different barriers separating you from the animals, but also have it so you wouldn't realize as a guest that you are being separated from the animals. They want to have it so it felt like those animals could come to you at some point or another, but at the same time, they wanted to have it so they never really could. So my favorite one is the elephants. If you look at the elephants look massive. They look huge. They're right there in front of you. Or are they? In reality, those elephants are pretty far away. But what they did was to make it so it looked like they were closer to you instead of further away. Instead of having it so you were on the same level as them, because when you're actually on the truck, this is how it looks. Okay, so this is the road. This is the elephants. If you go between them, there's a ditch that goes way down here, and eventually that ditch goes up towards that waterway that you sometimes see the elephants playing in, and that waterway gradually goes up. So instead of having it so you guys are at the same level, you're further apart. But on top of that, to have it so you would feel like the elephants were pretty much right there, the Imagineers decided to do the thing that was kind of forced perspective, but a little bit of the opposite, if that makes sense. So instead of having it so it looked like things were bigger while you were looking up, they wanted to have it so things looked bigger when you were looking at them across the way. So in order to give this effect, they actually raised up the elephant. So while you're there, the elephants look like they're at a lower perspective than you, but in reality, they're actually at a higher perspective than you are at, because of the way that the road is slanted, the way that the trees are slanted, the ways that everything is created, it makes it look like they are at the same level as you, but in reality, they're actually higher up than you are to give you the feeling that they are a lot closer to you than they actually are. What? So they would go through and they would get some different elephants. When they were going through and getting these different elephants, they also found some lions. They also found some giraffes. They also found some hippo. They also found some crocodile, etc., etc., etc. Now, in order to go through and actually have it so these animals would be given a good life, they had to hire in some experts all around the world that could help them create the perfect living conditions for these animals. So what they did was they actually went to someone who worked at the San Diego Zoo and said, hey, how you doing? And they said, hey, pretty good. And they said, hey, do you want to work for Disney? And he said, hey, no. But they started to go through and pitch their idea of conservation, their idea of what they had in mind for this brand new theme park. And he was inspired. He said, you know what? I don't think I'm going to come over and work for you. However, I would like to be a little bit of guidance for you while you create this project. He came over to their plans for Disney's Animal Kingdom, and by the time he left the meeting, he not only wanted to work for Disney, he actually became the head of all animals throughout all of Walt Disney World. So if you ever went to the Living Season 1995, 1996, and 1997, before Animal Kingdom would open up in 1998, this guy was actually in charge of all the different animals that were at the Living Seas. You went over to Fort Wilderness and you saw all the different horses over there, the different ponies, the different, all those animals. Yes, he was in charge of that too. But more importantly, he was also in charge of finding these homes for these brand new animals. So what they did was they had it so he became the expert of how to actually have it so they could create a home, a living environment for these animals while also providing the backstory that they wanted these animals to have. So when they started to go through and create these different storylines of this living, working, breathing environment, they wanted to have it so they would go through and have it so these animals would not be forced to be outside all the time, but actually have a safe place to go home every single day. So what they decided to do was have it so there was a giant home for them out near the guests, but also a giant home for them backstage where they could be protected from the different environments that obviously Central Florida has. Now, a lot of the animals don't mind the rain, so they don't mind being outside during the rain. However, some of them, don't like hurricanes that much. And, Florida gets hit by hurricanes every now and then. So they decided that they're going to create a giant bunker for every single specific animal throughout the entire theme park. So if you ever go over to the line exposure or the line part of Kilimanjaro Safaris, you'll see Pride Rock essentially up on a hill. First off, up on the top, there's all these different air conditionings to try to have it so the animals will be in view. This is true for most of the different locations found throughout all of Disney's Animal Kingdom. A lot of the animals are being not forced, but they're being kind of like, summoned to different locations to make it better experience for you, the guest. So while you're there, you can be like, oh, look, there's a lion. But in reality, it's like, oh, the lion's like, hey, look, there's air conditioning over here. I'm going to hang out here for the rest of the day. So they have it so all these different things would be out to kind of beckon the animals forward to have it so they could live a joyful day. And then at the end of the night, they could be called back to their homes and also have a great nightlife too. So party all day. I want to rock and roll all night and party every day. That's essentially what they were doing here. They wanted to have it so no matter what time of day it was, every single animal there would be able to essentially rock and roll all night and party every day. So while we're going through and talking about this, I need to take a water. I'm not drinking water. I'm just like talking like nonstop here. Okay. So while they're going through and creating all these different things and trying to make things extremely exciting and extremely unique for every single guest, they would have to have it so they also came up with a brand new concept for what type of things they wanted to have inside this theme park. Because yes, you need animals. Yes, you need some storylines. But the idea that they had prior to this was Disneyland, Tokyo Disneyland, Epcot, Disney MGM Studios, or Disney's Hollywood Studios, if you want to call it that now, Disneyland Paris. All of these were taking things from the real world and making them have a little bit more whimsy or a little bit more fun, with the exception of Epcot. Now, for Epcot, the Imagineers would actually go all around the world and take different pictures of different things scattered throughout the world. And while they would do that, they would be able to create the different countries around World Showcase. Now, in order to do this research, they would actually have to travel there. But when you go to things like Magic Kingdom, Disneyland, Disneyland Paris, Tokyo Disneyland, they didn't really need that same experience, mainly due to the fact that they were creating these fantasy worlds. Some things were based on real life. They would do research for that, but they wouldn't actually be going out to the living environment to say, okay, so the castle that we have here has these circus tents behind us. And what does a circus tent look like? I know what we're going to do. We're going to go to the circus. They weren't really doing that. So what they were doing was they were creating a fantasy world based off of reality, when Epcot had it so they were basing reality off of, reality. So in order to create the reality for Disney's Animal Kingdom, the Imagineers would go off to Asia, specifically places like China, Nepal, India, big places. And then they would also go over to African nations, the Tanzania. They would had some of the engineers would go off and climb Mount Kilimanjaro safaris. So they would actually go through the real world. Now, when they were out there, they were encouraged not to take pictures of the environment outside of the buildings, but they wanted to actually have it so they took pictures of the actual buildings. So, for instance, when you go over to Asia at Disney's Animal Kingdom, you can take a look at all the different buildings and you can see the different patterns of paint on those buildings. Some of them, the paint only goes about yay high, and then it kind of changes to a different color and then kind of fades into a different color and it fades into a different color. This is mainly due to the fact that when they went to some of these different places, like around Kathmandu, aka Nepal, they would go over there and they would actually find these different paintings on the wall, and they would realize that the paintings were kind of layered throughout the years, and some paint chipped away, or maybe they just didn't have enough money to have it so they finished a paint job and it would be kind of an incomplete wall. They decided to take those same elements and bring it over to this area as well. Over in Africa, there's a few different things that I love. Number one, the wires that are found in Africa. You'll see all these different telephone wires. There's over 4 miles worth of wires just kind of being hoisted all around. None of them actually serve any type of purpose whatsoever. However, they are there. Number two, if you go over towards the Fichwa fellow, aka hidden fellow, the hidden Mickey that's on the wall. Fichwa means hidden in Swahili, so he's a hidden fellow. It's an obvious hidden Mickey. But anyways, if you go over there, there's the bicycle shop, and then right around the corner from the bicycle shop, there's a building that says, please knock before you're entering. And then a little bit down further that wall, you'll see these different mud prints. It's one of the coolest details found throughout all of Disney's Animal Kingdom. Most people just walk right on by it. If you look at these different mud prints, you will actually see actual handprints inside these mud prints. The reason they did this was because when they were going through actual Africa, they took different pictures of all the different walls on the different buildings, and they realized that a lot of them had these different handprint walls on there. The Imagineer said, hey, what's this all about? And they said, that's how we build walls. Like, you just, you plaster it on, and you take the next part of dirt and mud and stuff, you plaster that on, and that's how you just paste it on. And so they're not actually, carving off the thing and having it so it's a smoothed out surface. They just kind of have their handprints on there. So anyone, just like the hackers on Facebook took me out yesterday, anyone can go on these people and get their fingerprints around the world and take their identities as well. Smart people. So when you go through, you'll see that these are actually working, living, breathing environments, and all of them are actually based off of real life. Now, they needed to have it so there was not just those two sections, Asia and Africa. Fun fact, the majority of Asia didn't really open up until 1999. Technically, they said it depends on where you go. If you look in this book right here that talks about the opening of Animal Kingdom, in here it says that Asia was not open up in 1998. If you look at other books, they will say it was opened up in 1998. So it really kind of goes back and forth on whether or not it was or not opening in 1998. The only part of it that was open was the Feathered Friends and Flight show, which is what it's called now. Back then, it was called Winged Encounters. So when you go through Asia, none of it was really complete until the following year, and they would eventually add in the Maharaja Jungle Trek, and then very shortly after that, they would add in Kali River Rapids. Kali River Rapids also, by the way, was originally supposed to be Tiger River Run, but they decided to switch the name because they realized that there was not going to be any tigers that people would actually see, and they figured that most people would actually be upset that you would not be able to see any tigers. But that's besides the point. Because they had these two lands that were based on real life, what they wanted to do is they want to also have a little bit more fun with the park. So one, they created Discovery Island. Discovery Island is more of a playful, whimsical side, unlike the other two sections that we've talked about, of animals. So when you go through Discovery Island, you will have it so there's just mainly two shops there in the Tree of Life. A few other things like Pizza Faris there and Flame Tree Barbecue. But when you go through, there are different carvings of animals, but there's not as many real life animals. There's still some real life animals. That's where you can find the kangaroos, one of my favorites. You can also find the giant saddle-billed storks, flamingos, etc., etc., etc. What are those? The lemurs. The lemurs are over there too. A lot of different animals are found around Discovery Island. The tortoises, they are technically my favorite. I absolutely love the tortoises. I make sure to stop by and say hi to the tortoises almost every time I'm at Disney's Animal Kingdom. However, they have been doing some work on that trail behind Animal Kingdom, or behind the Tree of Life, where the tortoises live. So I've not been able to see the tortoises as often as I actually wanted to see them. and it's been making me really upset because I absolutely love to go see those tortoises. There's one of them that I swear recognizes me every time, because every time I go out there, it's the same little dot on his shell, and he always comes right to me. I'm like, hey, I got a friend. But that's besides the point. So they wanted to have it so there was going to be more whimsy on Discovery Island to kind of play on the idea of you are leaving this idea of the imagination world of all the other parks and entering into a more realistic world. So when you go through, you'll see different carvings, you'll see different sculptures and different things, focusing solely on the idea of animals everywhere you look. Everywhere you look, everywhere. Full House. So while you're going through that area, you'll see that. However, they also want to have Dinoland USA. Now, the idea of Dinoland USA came very early on in the process because they figured if they're going to be focusing on different animals like lions and tigers and bears, oh my, they also need to focus on animals of the past. So, of course, the most obvious one would be dinosaurs. So they created this massive, massive, massive elaborate backstory for Dinoland USA about two fishermen who were fishing and they found a dino bone, and then eventually this entire land kind of popped up around it. This is the only part of the area that was going to be placed in actual Florida. Actually, it's the first land that Disney ever created that was based in Florida. So while you're actually going through Dinoland USA, hate ride the teacups. By the way, I've been talking so much. I just like that. I think people are just as enthralled, or maybe I'm just sitting here talking to myself for so long that I'm like, I just probably put a bunch of people to sleep. But hopefully you guys are enjoying this so far. Anyways, because we haven't got back to the parking lot yet. And I want to get to the parking lot before we wrap up here in like 10 minutes. So when they created Dinoland USA, they wanted to have it so it actually took place in actual Florida. And the backstory of it was these people would go through and they would find dinosaur bones. And when they found dinosaur bones, more and more people started to come to the area. And then the Dino Institute came to the area. And then Chester and Hester, who are the only people besides the fishing lodge in the area, would also try to bank on the idea of all this money. And it became an actual working, living little town that focused solely on the idea of dinosaurs, which was the greatest discovery that the town had ever had. Side note, I've talked a lot about Dinoland USA throughout the years. Dinoland USA, in my opinion, is hands down one of the best themed lands that Disney's ever done. Yes, I'm looking at you, Galaxy's Edge and Toy Story Land. This is just such an amazing land, and no one appreciates it. And it drives me crazy how people cannot do it. I am amazed by your ability to share these stories off the top of your head. I think the best part was I didn't even know what the topic was going to be, but I love animal kingdom. As soon as I start getting passionate about these things, I'm like, keep on going. Let's keep going. So when you would go through Disney's Animal Kingdom or through Dinoland USA, there's this elaborate backstory there, and I love the backstory there. We need to just do like a tour. Like, we need to have it so if you're coming down sometime in the near future and you want to do a tour of Dinoland USA, I say let's do it, because I just want to. I love Dinoland USA. I love the backstory. There's so many details and there's so much rich history around the area. And like there's like a hidden map of what what Animal Kingdom looked like on opening day. And it's like this massive, massive thing in Dinoland USA, and people just walk by it like it's nothing because it looks like it's nothing. But in reality, it's such a cool detail. But okay. So anyways, they wanted to have it so they had this idea of the animals in the past. Now, they created the name Countdown to Extinction for the attraction Dinosaur, mainly due to the fact that there was a movie that was going to be coming out in 2000 called Countdown to Extinction. Eventually, that movie would be called Dinosaur. Now, the idea of Dinosaur, the 2000 film, was about Aladar and the Carnotaurus, and those are pretty much the only two connections between the land and the movie. So they just wanted to have it so there was some sort of tie-in to this movie that they were working on with the actual land. So they had Aladar, they had Carnotaurus, and that was about all they really had. But they decided what they're going to do is they were going to call it Countdown to Extinction, much like the movie was going to be called. And then the movie switched its name during production, so Countdown to Extinction switched its name as well. So it switched from Countdown to Extinction to Dinosaur. Going on the other side of the park, there was this idea of Beastly Kingdom, which is a very talked about topic in the Disney community. Beastly Kingdom was going to be a land that was going to focus on beastly or mythical creatures that most people just, they've imagined, but they've never actually existed. Things like dragons and unicorns. That's pretty much it. But so They're going to have it so there's going to be an entire themed area around unicorns and around these dragons, and have it so it's going to be a few different attractions. There was going to be a dueling roller coaster, which eventually was stolen and brought to Islands of Adventure over at Universal. There was going to be a unicorn roller coaster, which also was taken to Universal. So essentially, let's talk a little bit about this, because this is kind of an elephant in the room that a lot of people just don't really understand this concept of the history of the ride. So while they were going through and trying to get approval for Disney's Animal Kingdom, one of the things that they had while they were going through and trying to find the approval for Disney's Animal Kingdom was a few different things. One, they needed the approval for Disney's Animal Kingdom. Two, there was a lot of different Imagineers that lived in Central Florida, and these Imagineers that lived in Central Florida didn't really have any jobs that they were working on. They were hoping Disney's Animal Kingdom would become a thing because that would give them a project to work on. However, a lot of them were getting laid off because there was no future projects at Disney in Florida that they were really able to go to. So they were trying to figure out exactly what they're going to do, but the idea of Beastly Kingdom was still not a complete idea, and they said, we're not even sure if this is going to be part of Universal. Or I'm sorry, of Disney's Animal Kingdom. So what happened was Universal started to work on the idea of Islands of Adventure at the same time. And when that happened, it allowed Michael Eisner to say, okay, we need to green light the project of Disney's Animal Kingdom, because if Universal is going to build a second park, we need to have a fourth park to make sure that we stay ahead of the competition there. However, at that point, they already lost a lot of the different Imagineers to Universal. And when they lost those Imagineers to Universal, they also lost some of the plans for Beastly Kingdom, specifically the dueling roller coasters, which became a dueling roller coaster ride over at Universal, and a unicorn ride, which would also go to Universal. Now, I would like to say that when I was on my college program, I did have an annual pass to Universal. I regret it every day of my life. But when I had that annual pass over there, I remember going to Islands Adventure, and I remember specifically going to this specific area. Now it's part of the Harry Potter area. But I remember going to this specific area and being blown away. And I said, this is what Disney does. Like, this felt like a Disney park inside of Universal. And it was just that one section felt like it was so well themed, so well dedicated. And then I found out a few years later, oh, that was supposed to be in Animal Kingdom. But because of all the different things that happened, essentially Disney was trying to get more funding for Animal Kingdom, and they were able to sell some of the ideas for Animal Kingdom, and Universal purchased them. So that also brings us to the idea of why, if you look at the park logo for Animal Kingdom, there is a dragon on it. It's because a dragon was actually supposed to be part of the original plans, and then it just kind of fell aside. Fun fact, there is still a dragon when you go over to Pandora to this day. On the right-hand side, while you're going across the bridge, you can find a stone dragon. It used to have water coming out of its mouth. Now it doesn't. Let's also talk about this right here, because this is something What did you just say? You had an annual pass to Universal. I did have an annual pass to Universal back in 2004. We received such bad customer service. That's when I vowed I would never go back to Universal unless someone paid for me to go to Universal. And since that day, only one person's ever taken me up on that offer. And I had an okay time. There are some parts of it that I like. The Harry Potter stuff I do think is impressive. But yes, I did have an annual pass to Universal when I was a cast member back in 2004, and we used to go over probably every 3 to 4 weeks. We would do one of our days off, me and my two roommates, and we would go over there. But overall, yeah, and it was like a $99 pass. Like, I don't even know what like, looking at annual passes now, that's probably like the cheapest thing that I could have ever gotten for Universal. But yes, so anyways, when those plans were sold off to Universal, along with a lot of the Imagineers were taken away by Universal, when all this stuff was going on, in addition to all that, they wanted to have it so there was still an area over there where their idea of Beastly Kingdom would be, and it was just going to be a temporary land, and eventually would become Beastly Kingdom, and that idea was Camp Mini Mickey. So Camp Mini Mickey would be thrown together pretty last minute. It wouldn't be completely last minute, but it was pretty last minute. It was one of the last ideas of the park that was put into place. And when they're going through and creating Camp Mini Mickey, they came up with two different ideas. One was a show called Pocahontas and Her Forest Friends, starring Sprig the Plant. The best, absolutely the best. If you've never seen it, I say it every time we talk about the show. We talk about the show like maybe once a year. I always say make sure you go watch it on YouTube. And there is one person who every time I mention it will send me the link later on tonight. And I'm waiting for that. I haven't seen the person in the chat room today, so maybe they'll watch the show tomorrow, and then tomorrow I'll be getting a video of Sprig the Plant. But I get it every single year. Or every single time I bring up Sprig the Plant, they're like, here he is again. He's like, hey, everyone, how you doing? The way the Sprig the Plant was actually created was he is a puppet, and the puppeteer had to like lie on the ground underneath the stage to actually operate him and make it so he looked alive. Overall, great plants, great character. Absolutely love him. So in addition to that, they also came up with a new concept of a brand new attraction, which we call Festival Lion King. Festival Lion King was put together pretty last minute, and then still to this day, it is actually the highest ranked live performing show anywhere in Walt Disney World. So, so they would go through, and all this stuff was put together. The idea of conservation was on the forefront everywhere, and they had all these different experts. And that brings us to opening day, because that's what the whole thing was going to be about, was how Animal Kingdom came to opening day. And it took us 50 minutes to get there, but by golly, did we get there. So, 1998, April 21st. I know you're thinking, didn't the park open up on April 22nd? It did. However, the opening ceremony took place the night before. So, April 21st, 1998, they realized that they had a problem. And the problem they had was the idea that they didn't really have a stage that was big enough to fit all these different people for a presentation about the opening up of Disney's Animal Kingdom. There is no place like the other parks, for instance, over at Magic Kingdom, the front of Cinderella Castle. That's where they did their big performance when the park first opened up. They did a big speech. Over at Epcot, they did it over at the Fountain of Nations, which used to be that fountain that was between Mouse Gear and Starbucks. Those are the last two things that were there. They used to have that big fountain there. That's where they did the opening with all the guests behind there going towards World Showcase. That's where they did their opening ceremony. Over at Disney's Hollywood Studios, it would be over at in front of the Grauman's Chinese Theater. They would go through and do a huge presentation. Animal Kingdom, they didn't really have the room where everyone could see it. So the idea of having the opening ceremony taking place on April 22nd, the actual opening day, was thrown aside, and they decided to do it instead on April 21st and have it so there was enough people who could watch it. They had the opening ceremony in the Animal Kingdom parking lot. So on that day, April 21st, Roy Disney would go up and he would talk about how his uncle Walt had these original plans for the Jungle Cruise, which would feature these live animals. It never came to be, and luckily now his Uncle Walt's dream was becoming a reality. What would that have been, like 33 years later? In addition to that, Roy Disney did, or I'm sorry, 43 years later. 43 years later. In addition to that, Roy E. Disney, this is actually Walt's nephew, Roy O. Disney's son. Roy E. Disney would go through and he would actually have it so he had worked on the True Life Adventure series back in the 1950s and 60s. So he kind of talked about that, about his, how Walt always had a connection to animals. And, that's how they're going to kind of tie all this together. Michael Eisner came out there. He did his speech, the whole, welcome to the world of fantasy, realistic, and past, and how all the animals here are coming together. That's when he made that blunder about Jane Goodall. And then everyone went into the park, and they had a jolly old time. The next day, the park would open up to be a sold-out crowd before the park even opened up. Everyone would be there. And that, my friends, is the story of how Animal Kingdom became Animal Kingdom. It's been an hour. However, we'll go through it. If you guys have any questions, I'll wait for 90 seconds. If anyone has any questions out there, we'll take any questions that pop up in 90 seconds. And then we will take a look at our numbers. If we increased in numbers at all for number of subscribers, then we will go into a little bit of extra innings here. I just took a long time. That was a long-winded sentence. But that's how Animal Kingdom became Animal Kingdom. Oh, man. Water's good. I desperately needed that water about halfway in. I'm kicking myself for not bringing a second water over here today. I usually bring two. Today I only brought one. Any questions out there? Any questions at all? Okay, well, you guys throw possible questions to the comments. Let's check our numbers. I don't think we're going to have any increased numbers. But we'll still check. Did we get 3,100? Did we get 3,100? We did not. We're still at 3,099. Boo. I'm not going to say boo. I appreciate 3,099. You guys are amazing out there. Every single person out there who is subscribed, you are amazing. I greatly appreciate every single one of you. And whoever's our 3,100th person, I appreciate you too if you're watching this later on. You rock. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any questions coming in. So we are going to wrap up tonight's show right there. As always, tonight's episode was sponsored by It's All About the Mouse Travel Jazz Hands. Make sure you stop by It's All About the Mouse Travel.com for all of your Disney travel needs. All of their services are absolutely positively 100% free. So make sure you book with them for your next Disney vacation. I'd like to thank everyone out there for joining us once again this week. Please keep on spreading the word about the Wednesday show and From Screen to Theme, and invite anyone and everyone to subscribe here on YouTube. I don't know what's going to happen with Facebook. Like I said, we're going to try to fix those problems after the show tonight. So if you're watching later on and you're like, I was waiting on Facebook, I don't know what you're doing, I apologize, because there was no way for me to let you know. So yes, I apologize to anyone who's been trying to get on the From Screen to Theme Facebook page. But once the first From Screen to Theme Facebook page is back up and running, or at least that I have access to it, make sure you go through people that way too. I'm just afraid that, of the hacking still. So, of course, as always, remember that anything can happen if you let it. Until next week, have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye now. Goodbye now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Are they gone? Are they gone? Oh, good. My cheeks are just killing me. I just can't stand this.